Guys, it has been a minute since we released the video, about the aired or water-cooled air cooler, whatever you want to call it. And I'm gonna be honest, didn't think it was gonna do as good as it did, but I'm glad that it did. But it's been a while since we made this video, and the follow-up video still isn't out, and I wanted to give you guys a heads up of what's going on, why it's been taking so long, so you guys know what's going on over on my end, and that it is coming, promise you. So this is just gonna be like a little part 1.5, just kind of like a heads up of what the plan is, what we're planning on doing, a little bit of an unboxing here. So there's no testing or anything, so if you're thinking this video is gonna have some more testing with this cooler, just want to let you know off the get-go so you don't hang around for the whole video if you don't want to. So let's just talk about what has been going on since we made this. When I made this little doodad, the idea was not really to, test it, so to say. I mean, yeah, I wanted to see if it worked, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't think it would make it as far as it did. I thought it would work for sure. I didn't know it was gonna work as decently as it did. And I did think it was actually gonna leak and murder my motherboard, which it didn't do. So I was very pleased with all that. Also, a lot of people said, why didn't you use a radiator? And I'm gonna be honest with you, didn't have one. So that led to the bucket of ice and the cheapo pump. And that's why we're here. So what happened in the meantime since then is I had to acquire the proper hardware to, test this properly against something more, substantial than a bucket of ice and just seeing if it worked. And that is where our friends Newegg and EK actually came in clutch on this one and helped me out. And it just took a little bit longer than planned to get all the equipment in, but it's here now. We're gonna take a look at what the plan is, what we're gonna do going forward. And I just wanted to give you a heads up. I haven't forgotten about this little guy, and we're gonna do some more with it. So let's take a look. Let's move this because we don't wanna break it because one of a kind, and I wanna make another one. Stay. So the first thing, before we get to this, first thing I did do is I bought myself a new Evo cooler because we need to test it against what it actually used to be. So yeah, if you haven't watched the video on what exactly that is, make sure to check it out. I'll leave a link and a tag around here. But essentially it used to be this air cooler, and then I built a little box around it, basically a fish tank, and we pumped water through it and saw how it worked. And it didn't do too bad for a bucket of ice. So what we need to do is we need to test it against what it actually used to be. So the idea here is to run this through some benchmarks, see what it does heat-wise, and then run that and see how they compare. But another thing is that is supposed to be kind of like a DIY cooler, and we need to test it on a real loop. So our buddies at EK sent over the Performance 240 liquid cooling kit because it didn't have any water cooling supplies other than the pump from Amazon. And that AIO that I didn't want to tear apart. So I needed everything. I needed a radiator, I needed some tubing, I needed a pump reservoir, and I needed a water block. Because we want to just, not only do we want to hook it up to a normal loop with a radiator, a pump, and all that good stuff, we want to be able to hook that up in a regular loop and see how it works. And that's what we're going to take a look at. So let's just open it up and see what's going on in here. So we just have 24-pin jumper. This is just basically to test the pump when you do some water cooling. You never want to turn everything on before you check for leaks, and if you're rocking something like that, leak checking is a must, and that just kind of, so you don't have to use a paper clip, you can use this actual plug. So this is actually useful for our situation. So this is their EK's cryo fuel, and this is a concentrate, and basically mix that with some, I believe it is distilled water, and it has a corrosion inhibitor in there. And a lot of you notice that this thing has aluminum fins and copper heat pipes, which in warm water don't play nice. And this will help us, avoid some corrosion. I mean, obviously we're not going to use that as a long-term solution, but we don't want to ruin anything in the meantime. Actually, the plan is to try to build a final model around an all copper heat stack, or all copper cooler, and it's actually quite difficult to find an all copper cooler. Some of you guys in the comment section have been linking some copper coolers you found, but they're very far, few and far between. So if you know of a good cooler that's all copper and it's an air cooler, link it down below because I'd like to check it out. Other than that, I think we're going to have to stick with maybe like a zinc or nickel plated copper or zinc plated copper or something like that in order to get is the best situation we can do. If we can find something that's all aluminum, we can get an aluminum block from EK and an aluminum radiator, and that could work as well. And we just got some tubing. Oh, what do we got? So this is our pump reservoir combo, which is going to be great for our cooling loop, considering I don't have one now, so it'll do just dandy. So this is the EK Supremacy Evo water block for our CPU. If I was to guess, I would assume this was a radiator. Not that I read the box or anything, but... And yes, this is of course the radiator, 240 millimeter. And a couple 120 millimeter fans for our radiator. Yeah, might as well take a look. What do they look like? What do they look like? The Varder F4 120, 2200 RPM fans. 2 of those bad boys, and now we're gonna go on the radiator. Okay, so here it all is. This is the idea, and if you have additional comments or maybe say something I missed, make sure to leave me a comment down below. I'm gonna be checking them out and make sure that we test this to its full potential before we move into working on a version 2. So this is the water cube, or whatever name we decide to pull off on this thing, which basically started out life as this. This is the Hyper 212 Evo, which is actually a great little cooler. It's also a pretty good little water block. And the idea here is we're gonna, of course, install this first on the test bench, and we're gonna test it and just see how well it does under load. And we're gonna I'll try to overclock my 2500K as much as I possibly can. It's old chip, but it does the job, and it's, I don't want to say expendable, but it's a little older. I won't be too sad if it dies. I mean, it has been around a while, so I don't want it to die, but the idea is to overclock as much as possible, see how much heat this thing can take away from it. After that is done, we are gonna move to EK's solution, because I trust mine the least, and if it breaks on mine and we do mine first, well, then all this kind of goes to waste. So we're gonna go air cooler first, because it's the easiest setup. EK's solution, because this is basically, if you didn't have any watering cooling things, kind of like, you know, myself, and you wanted to get into a custom water cooling, this is the best thing to pick up because it has everything you need and it's easy to install. So that's what we're gonna try second to see how that works. And then we're gonna move to this thing. And I think I'm gonna follow your guys's, a lot of comments said, why don't I hang the motherboard upside down? And since my test bench is custom made or homemade, I can easily do that. So I think I might, because this thing's been sitting a while, and you can already see that things have started to go a little south on our water block. It is holding water still, other than the hose, but the water's still in there and it's still holding water, so it's still working, but I'd be more comfortable if it's upside down. So I think that's what we're gonna do. We'll have some corrosion inhibitor to try to ward off the galvanic corrosion, if I'm saying that correctly. You know what I mean. The aluminum copper, bad idea. Extra tubing. And then we're gonna see how it works. Also, I'm gonna get some food coloring, just an easy way for us to load up the system. We'll run it, and then we're gonna throw some food coloring in it, pump it, turn the pump on, and just see how the flow pattern works, because I never did put the divider I talked about in the top of this, and there is a possibility that a lot of the fluid may be traveling over the top. Maybe not as much as you think, because the barbs are so low that it keeps the fluid level down. But I do assume that a lot of the fluid is just passing around the outside of the fin stack, because there's a lot of air in there. We're gonna try to get the air out as well. But that'll give us a good visualization of where and how the fluid's moving within the box. And we're just gonna run every one of these solutions at the same, clock speed, the same overclock, and we're gonna see which one keeps it the coolest. And it's not really about who does the best, it's about how good does this do compared to real cooling solutions, like a real water cooler and a really popular air cooler. And that's what we're gonna see. And then we're gonna see how we can improve this design and make a better version 2, with the hopes that maybe down the road I can get a version 3, or maybe the version 2 will be good, and I doubt that. Normally the second revision is never really the go-to winner, but the third might possibly be something that I can install in a custom water-cooled loop, and that'd be pretty cool in a PC build. Obviously though, we want to try to find something that's all aluminum or all copper to avoid any corrosion problems, but you can only find so many things out there. But if you know of something I don't, make sure to leave me a comment down below. Also, if you think that there's a testing parameter that I missed, make sure you leave a comment down below for that too, because I'm going to be going through all of them. If there's something you guys think I should test that I didn't think of, I'm going to make sure that I pull that into the testing parameters to make sure we don't leave any stone unturned, because the more things we test, the better version 2 is going to be, which means the final version will end up better than it could possibly be in the end. So thank you guys for watching. I know it's been a while since we did a follow-up to this little water cooler and solution, but I just want you to know I haven't forgot about it. We have a plan, and now we have equipment, so it's coming. See you in that one.